2. Hello, everybody. Wow, welcome back to our Financial Empowerment Week. And you guessed it, that's right. We got Ramona Thomas, and she's back. She's going to be talking about how to secure your financial future. All right. That is interesting subject to cover. And we actually enjoy having Ramona Thomas on our programming. Just encourage you to prepare yourself to prosper in your future. And even if you're prospering now, you need to secure what you already have. So we want to encourage you to do that. Today, we want to thank our sponsors, Allstate, for sponsoring our programming and helping us get the word out. But we thank you so much for doing that. Also, Thomas Estes, make sure you support our sponsors so we can keep this information flowing to you, those of you who are watching. Also, we have Frank Coppola, who is going to be coming to us. He's going to be on next week. He's going to talk about how you can build a business that you love. And my favorite subject, overcoming procrastination. All right. You can join us next week for those subject lines with Frank Coppola, amazing author and speaker. You always want to hear from him. So we want to encourage you to tune in next week for building a business that you love. And he's going to give us a few tips today after we hear from Ramona. So without further ado, I'm going to present to you Ramona Thomas. Come on in, Ramona. We're ready for you.
Hi, Phil. Thanks again for having me back 3 days in a row. This has been really great. So, I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of help people figure out different aspects of their financial life. So, today we're talking about leaving a family legacy. And I'm going to share my screen if you could help me do that. I do have a couple of slides, not a lot. This is often one of the hardest conversations I have with clients and with people in general. It's about, what do you want your legacy to look like? And it's a hard conversation to have because you're having the conversation about when you're no longer here. It's just something that we don't want to talk about when we're not here. But it's a really important conversation to have, especially where now in the middle of a pandemic, and unfortunately a lot of people are passing away. We're hearing the stories every day on the news, or I'm sure there many of us have been touched by COVID in one way or another. We know people who have it, and unfortunately people who've either passed away or whose relatives have passed away. So it's a really timely conversation to have. And what I would ask you to think about is, don't think of it as so like morbid, so terrible. Think about sort of the good things that come out of it. And it's really, Oscar actually touched on this yesterday when he talked about leaving a love letter to your family. And that's one way to definitely think about your legacy, is just sort of showing your love for your family and others that you care about. And so we're going to just kind of get right on in it. Let's see if I can find the way to move my slides. There we go. Okay. So the first thing to think about is, when you hear the word legacy, what does it really mean for you? Um, is it about sharing your values and beliefs with like your children, your grandchildren, other relatives and family members, your community? Is it for you about charities? We often hear about people who leave a charity either in their own name, or they leave wealth to a charity, a cause that they care about. It could be cancer, it could be animals, it could be anything, saving wildlife, other causes that you care about, your church or other religious institutions that you support, or political institutions for that matter. They're just leaving something financial behind. Or is it passing on your wealth? if you've accumulated wealth that you want to pass on, or, for many of you who run your own businesses, who are growing your businesses, many family businesses are passed down through generations. So, oftentimes when we hear the word legacy, we often think about the very wealthy. Unfortunately, a lot of different topics, when we talk about money and finances, we think it's only for the very wealthy. But the truth is, each of us will leave a legacy. And a legacy is really about passing on what's important to you, to those that you care about. So you could be your family, friends, community, organization. So it's really about what's important to you. And again, if it's animals, or if it's wealth, or whatever it is, your values, those are the things that you're going to be passed, like that you're going to pass down to those that you love. So, think about what you want your legacy to be. When you're no longer here doing the things that you do, what do you want your legacy to be? And I think, I'd like to use, well, this is a little challenging, but think about people that you admire who passed away. I was going to use one in particular, but I don't want to. But think about people you admire. Maybe it's a singer, or an actor, or an athlete, who's passed away. It could be your grandparents, grandfather or grandmother, or even a parent. Think about the legacy that they leave. And I'll use my great grandmother as an example. It wasn't the example I was going to use, but she just came to mind. I never met her. But she, raised my mom and my aunts and uncles. And I think about how, even though she's not here and I never met her legacy lives on through them and what they taught me and my siblings and my cousins. And so even though she's not here, the legacy and the values in our family, like how you treat people, being kind and being forgiving, like she taught a lot about just what it means to be family. And when you come into a family, like it's not necessarily blood. She raised a lot of children that were not her biological children. So when I think about family and how that's important to me, a big part of that is my great grandmother's legacy that she passed on. So, legacy, we often think material things in terms of money and houses and, estates and acres and things like that, land. But a legacy can be other things that's not tangible, but that are really valuable, that matter. So think about how you want to be remembered. What are some of the key words? I use the words to describe my great grandmother in terms of loving, very family oriented, forgiving, things like that. Think about terms or words that describe the way you want to be remembered. And then the key question here is, how will you make sure that your legacy, that you leave the legacy that you want to? What are you doing now to make sure that the legacy that you want to leave is the one that you actually leave? Because people often say, I want to be remembered for this, but they're often remembered for that, something else. So what are you doing today while you're still here, while you're still in the lives of the people that you care about, to make sure that the legacy you want to leave is the one that you actually leave, and the way that you want to be remembered is the way that you will be remembered? Because wanting to be something or wanting to have a certain legacy doesn't necessarily mean that it will happen. So making sure that you do your part so that the way you want to be remembered and the legacy you want to leave really is, it really does take place. So think about your work, what you do. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you make a living for, or it doesn't have to be your business, but think about your life's work. If you kind of think of your life's work as a book, right, with different chapters for different jobs that you've had, or different businesses that you've run, what does that look like? Think about volunteering or your charitable donations. Like if you give to nonprofits, or if you volunteer, with kids, or maybe you volunteer with the elderly, or you give to, cancer awareness, or, things like that. Think about that also as part of your legacy. Investing, for those, and we talked about investing for the past couple of days. But if you're investing to accumulate wealth or preserve your wealth, are you passing it down to your children and your grandchildren, other family members? Think about ensuring that your loved ones and your family, that they know your plans and wishes. Like, you know, if something happens to you, will they know what to do? Do you want to be buried? Where do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Like thinking about who's going to care for your children, who's going to, you know, look out for your dog or your pets, or, you know, all of those things, making sure that those things are well known. And then the other thing around legacy, just sort of another way that you can leave a legacy. We talked about this. It's passing on wealth to the next generation. And as I said earlier, this is the topic that's the hardest part of the conversation that I have, you know, with my clients. But it's also really important. And, you know, for us, many of us don't know how to bring up the topic, which is why we don't. We don't know how to talk to our family and friends about, you know, how we want to be remembered or what we want our final wishes to be. But we all know someone where, you know, we all know family members, a family, right? Or friends whose family members don't speak because of something that happened when grandpa died, or when their parents died, or when uncle so and so died. Like, there are a lot of family members out there, a lot of families where you have relatives who don't communicate. They stop talking because of fighting over an inheritance, or, you know, no, mom really wanted this, no, she really wanted that, and not having, you know, clarity about that. And so it's really so much better to have the conversation now than before something happens in your family or in, you know, your life, that causes, you know, relatives to start fighting and disagreeing, and it brings up a lot of confusion. So you can actually do that, which is why you'll often hear people refer to, you know, sort of the family love letter, or just making sure that your final wishes are known to your family. And one of the ways that you can do that is actually have conversations with your family. It really opens the line of communications. And I'll use myself as an example. You know, during the pandemic, I was talking to my parents who are elderly, you know, and who are also really concerned about COVID. And, you know, we started this, the whole conversations about the ventilator and being resuscitated. And I didn't know, you know, both of them kind of shared, and my parents are divorced, but both of them shared, no, I don't want to be on a ventilator. No, I don't want to be resuscitated. So just having, you know, those conversations are really important. So the next thing I would say is, you know, have those conversations, talk to your family about it, opens the lines of communication, and it really improves understanding about family wishes and desires. So I just shared about my parents, things that I didn't know. And often talking will uncover those things that you thought you knew about, you know, your siblings or about your parents, or, you know, if you have adult children, or if you're an adult child like me who has elderly parents, it really just improves understanding about what they want or what you want, because they may not know. And oftentimes we think we know, but we don't. And what you'll find is that even though it's hard to maybe think about how you bring up the conversation, most people who have these conversations actually feel more comfortable. Like they have greater comfort and confidence about, if something will happen, they know what to do. They're not guessing, right? They really are honoring their parents' wishes or their grandparents' wishes, or your spouse. For many of you who are married or in committed partnerships and relationships, just kind of knowing what your spouse wants. You'd be surprised how many people don't talk to their spouse. They could be married for 20 years and not know. So it's again tough conversation to have, but it's really important. And I would say that the last thing that sort of comes out of it is there are fewer misunderstandings. Oh, I thought you wanted so and so. No, I really want this. I thought you wanted to be buried in the family burial plot. No, I really want to be cremated. Like, just knowing those things takes away misunderstandings. It takes away a lot of confusion, and it takes away a lot of fighting. You don't have siblings, you know, fighting over an estate, or fighting over what they think, you know, parents wanted, or what a spouse wanted, or a spouse fighting with in-laws. Like, there are just so many different ways that those conversations and the decision making can go awry. So talking to your family and friends now, especially now during a pandemic, you know, about the things that you want to happen And understanding what they want to happen is really important. And then, writing it down. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Just really quickly. So hey Ramona, who should I include when you talk about family? Who should I be talking to? That's going to vary based on your situation, right? So if you're married, obviously you're going to talk to your spouse. If you have siblings, if you have grandchildren or children, parents, things like that, you're going to want to talk to. You're going to want to talk to them. So a couple of topics that you're going to want to talk about are your family wishes. So if you have children and heaven forbid something happens to you, who's going to raise your children? How will they raise your children? Do they know what your wishes are for their education, for going to college, for your religious beliefs, things like that? If you are an adult and you care for your elderly parents, heaven forbid something happens to you, who's going to care for your parents? Who's going to make decisions about what happens to them if they get to stay at home or an assisted living facility? If you have siblings, these are the people you should be talking to about what happens to your parents. If you have children, you should be talking to, your spouse, your partner, your siblings, others, and who you would want to be involved in raising them. So definitely make sure that people know, what's important to you around that. Think about your estate. But Ramona, I'm not a millionaire. I'm not leaving millions and millions of dollars. If you have a bank account, you have an estate. If you have a car, you have an estate. Like an estate is leaving behind anything of tangible value to someone who is left behind. So you want to make sure that you are really clear about whatever it is that you own, who's going to get that. And so there are four sort of basic documents. I won't go into a lot of detail about what they are, but that help you distribute your estate. So one is a will, which is a legal document. It sets forth your wishes regarding the distribution of your property and your assets and the care of any minor children. So if you have minor children and you own a home or you have assets, you should have a will. A trust is something else that some people have. And a trust is basically a fiduciary arrangement. It's a financial legal arrangement that allows a third party, which is the trustee. A trustee can be a bank or a legal entity, and they're going to hold your assets for you. So oftentimes you may hear someone whose parent passed away and their estate was put in a trust for the child. And the trustee could be an attorney or someone else who's managing those assets in the trust for the child. Adults can have trust. A lot of people have trust, but basically the fiduciary makes the decision and you instruct the fiduciary on how you want the assets to be held and distributed to your beneficiaries. The one thing I will say about estate planning documents, if you don't have a will and you don't have a trust, make sure your beneficiaries are up to date. So make sure your beneficiaries on all your accounts, your retirement accounts, any investment accounts, any bank accounts. If your beneficiaries are current and up to date, and I'm not an estate planning attorney, but they will often supersede your will. So if your will is not current, but your beneficiaries are, oftentimes they will go with your beneficiaries. So this is a great time to look at the beneficiaries on your estate, on your insurance policies, if you have life insurance, things like that, especially if you have workplace benefits, benefits through your job. Oftentimes, there's life insurance and there's retirement plans. Make sure your beneficiaries are current. That's a really great place to start. It's a quick phone call. You can do it right after you finish watching this. You just call the number and make sure that you're clear about who your beneficiaries are. That's a really big part of planning your estate. The other two documents are a healthcare directive. So heaven forbid something happens to you, who do you want to make healthcare decisions about you? And again, making sure that they know whether or not you want to be resuscitated, do you want to be on a ventilator, are you okay with blood transfusions? Like just making sure that they know what's important to you. And then the last is a power of attorney. So if you are unable to make legal decisions for yourself, who do you want to make those decisions for you? So when you're thinking about your estate and what you're passing along, these are the things, the kinds of documents that you want to have in place, that you want to be able to write down. And, you can do some basic, hey, Ramona, I don't have an attorney. These things sound really expensive. I would say start with the internet. Start with, there are a lot of places that offer those services for flat fees. Oscar talked about it yesterday. And there are a lot of attorneys and other resources online that can get you started at, low or no cost. The other thing you should be talking about with your family, and we're talking about leaving a legacy, is around money. And assets, making sure that people know where your assets are. And that's hard because as people, we kind of hold our assets, close to our chest. We don't really often talk about our accounts or, where they are. And so, you want to make sure that people know where you bank. Where your life insurance policies are, where if you have investments, where your investments are, so that people know, whoever your, beneficiaries are, that they know where all of those, that information is. And it's the same with your insurance policies, making sure that, those beneficiaries are up to date, making sure that you have adequate coverage. And this is going to vary, if you're single versus if you have children. Again, if you have small children or young children, you want to think about your earning potential, right? So if you're 35, you have a 5-year-old, you're going to work for another 30 years. Heaven forbid something happens to you at age 37. That's 28 years of earning potential that's lost. And that's a place where insurance can be very helpful. It's covering, your lifetime earnings, if you're not able to live long enough to earn them. Also, you can use insurance for a lot of other ways. Some people use insurance to actually generate and pass on wealth to the next generation, and others use it to actually protect their assets. So there are a number of different ways that you can use insurance, but the key is you want to make sure that if you have it, that you have what you need for your family, and that you make sure that your beneficiaries are current and up to date, and that they know, where the policy information is. And so I've been talking about, important contacts, important documents, and just having a one pager, with a list of everything, is an important, thing to do. And you can have it on your computer or have it in a, special folder where you keep your papers, so that people know, the policy numbers and things like that. The other thing, which, we're seeing more and more, and we live in a digital times where we all have different kinds of accounts, online account information to our banks and to our investment portfolios and retirement portfolios and to social media accounts. Just making sure that, your relatives, somebody knows, again, something happens to you, that they can deactivate your social media accounts, that they know how to, deactivate your bank accounts and your ATM cards and things like that. And so it makes life so much easier for the people that are left behind, because it really, if you don't have someone who's targeted to do that, and you have a child or sibling who does it for you, it's very difficult for them oftentimes to, go to the bank and, have to close your account or turn off your cell phone or things like that. So to the extent that you can write that information down, let the person know who you want to handle that, it really will help a lot. And then the other thing to talk about is sort of when you're, something happens to you, what are your final wishes? And I kind of talked about this earlier, how would you like your remains to be handled? If you want to be cremated and have your ashes kept in the family or spread in the ocean or on the beach, or if you, want to be buried, where, just making sure that your family knows those things makes it easier for them. Grief is hard enough. And for those of you who've lost someone close to you, that it's very difficult. And then not knowing what the person wanted makes it more difficult. And that's where you start to see a lot of people are overwhelmed, they're stressed out, there's conflict and confusion, which can escalate to, fighting and people suing each other in court and things like that. And so, to the extent that you can make those known to your family, it makes grief, it doesn't make grief easier, but it allows your family members and the people that you love to get through that period in a way that knows that they're honoring you. They know that they were able to do the things that you wanted to the best of their ability. So it really does become a mutual love, right? You share with them what it is that you want. They love you and honor you enough to do the best that they can to honor what it is that you want. I know an estate planning attorney who often says that if you don't decide your estate while you're living, the courts will do it after you're gone. And we've seen, cases like with Prince, who didn't leave a will, and the state of Minnesota was making decisions about how to distribute his estate. So, and you don't have to be as wealthy or as famous as Prince to have those same kinds of conflict come up, in your family. So I'm going to end there and hope that this at least gets you open and opens you to having the conversation, with your family and with your friends. And it doesn't have to be morbid. It doesn't have to be, sad or anything like that. It can just think of it as another area of your financial life that's really important. And it involves those that you love and care about. So I'm going to end there, Phil, and see if you or anyone else has any questions.
Goodness, here we go. Yeah, that is amazing. Thank you so much, Ramona, for such a wonderful presentation. You had me writing stuff down. I was like, oh, I haven't done that. I haven't done that either. So yeah, we may have to have a conversation together.
Okay.
Definitely after seeing you do this presentation, I said to myself, I need to have a sit down with Ramona. So this is great. I appreciate your time in doing this. But I have a question for you. So
yes.
Mainly, when you have a will, how is that enforceable? Does that make your desires enforceable, or can that be changed after you're gone?
So I am not an estate planning attorney. So I should have said this. I don't actually do wills, power of attorneys, or trusts. Or I actually will refer that out to an estate planning attorney. We just recommend it as part of your financial picture. So gotcha. That question I would have to defer to an estate planning attorney who knows about the enforceability of your will. I couldn't say that. I couldn't answer that in good conscience and feel confident about it.
Okay. I mean, that's understandable. That's very understandable. How easy is it though to secure yourself, or how easy is it to set these things up?
It's not difficult. I think it's just finding the right person. And again, I always encourage people to start where you're comfortable. So for those that need to kind of know, research for yourself. You can look on the internet and just get a better understanding of what's a will. Do I need a will versus a trust? When do you need a trust? When do you need a will? And then, like I said, there are definitely estate planning attorneys out there, many of whom will do a complimentary consultation. And I do have a couple that I know. So if anyone would, like a referral, definitely reach out to me, and I'd be glad to make a referral to an estate planning attorney who can sit down with you and understand more about your estate and what your concerns are. And then they can actually give you really great guidance about, what the preparation of the documents look like and things like that. So it's just a matter of the first step. It's just saying, yes, I'm going to do it. And the first step is making the call. It's not really the yes, I want to do it. It's actually sending the email, hey, do you have time? Or calling
Mm,
someone and saying, can I schedule a complimentary consultation to learn more about what I need to do?
wow. Um, Life insurance. Is that something that everyone should have? Or is that, you, what do you think, consider that something optional that people need to have in their life?
I believe for some people, and again, life insurance is it's going to be based on your net worth, the assets that you hold, things like that. I do believe for many people it's a necessity. And for some it is not, because there are some who um, will not need the death benefit, right? We often
Right.
think about life insurance for the death benefit, which we often use for, families use to, for burials and paying off any remaining debts or outstanding, liabilities or things like that. So there are some people who don't need life insurance. And I have clients who don't have any. But I
Right.
also have many for whom life insurance is essential, because heaven forbid something happened to them today. You have families on doing GoFundMe's. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if you have life insurance, you don't have to do a GoFundMe. You take the policy to wherever it is, the crematory, the funeral home, whatever, and you can take care of your loved ones. So I do believe for many families it's essential, but there are other ways that you can use life insurance. Um,
Okay.
there, and I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's say you're a working couple, you have small children, something happens to one of the spouses, you can use, and you have a mortgage, you're moderately young family, but you're still in
Mm,
your mortgage, you're still paying off your home. Something happens to one of the spouses, your life insurance can pay off your house. So that
mm,
way the surviving spouse, the surviving partner doesn't have to worry about, can we stay in this home? Your house is paid for. It's done. It can even allow the surviving spouse a couple of years, right? To just kind of get that new life without the one who's gone, right? Just sort of being able to readjust the family. That might mean taking a couple of years off work or away from the business, but still having, income. So you can use it, that way. There are a lot of other ways that insurance can be used for people who are carrying debt, right? So maybe you're growing your business, or you've taken on a lot of debt, you don't really have the assets to cover the debt. Again, heaven forbid something happens to you, you don't want your surviving spouse trying to figure out how to pay off your debt. And you can have a policy that will do that for you. So something happens to one of the partners or the spouse, the life insurance policy will take care of, your remaining debts, again, making it easier for your loved ones to be able to adjust without you being here. So that's a very long answer to your question. I would say
mm.
for many people,
Good
it's a
answer. Very good answer
necessity,
too.
and for
Mm,
some people, it's not. But it's a very small percentage for who
right.
it's not important.
You mentioned something about having that conversation with your family. And I think that's very sensitive for a lot of people because, you're covering something, like you said, for when you're not around. So this is more of a, off tilt maybe question, but what's the best way, based on your experience, what's the best way to have this conversation with you? Is it like a family dinner all together, separately? What would you recommend for the person that's considering, having this conversation?
I think you know your family. We all know our families, right? And so, family dinner table, like a Sunday dinner, whenever you guys gather together, is a great time because everybody's there. Everybody's hearing what's coming up, right? But, for some families, that may not work. There may be some wounds there. That may surface. And so you may need to do a one-on-one conversation. I'll share two personal examples. I ended up talking. For me, it was kind of split. Like my parents are divorced. I talked to my dad separately, but I talked to my mom and sister together. And, my sister has 2 adult children. And I said, if something happens to you, heaven forbid, who do you want to make decisions, mommy
Right.
or her oldest son? And they're both over 21. And she just kind of looked like, and I could feel she was torn. Like, of course it should be mommy, but my oldest son, like it's just one of those,
Yes.
like, what do you do? So I think it just depends on the family. You may start at the big dinner table, and then sort of have one-on-ones, with people after. And I'll say, even in family, it's hard. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard. I have relatives where you can't get people to move. It's like, and I do this every day for a living. And there's, I still have relatives that are just like, oh my gosh, like, you gotta be kidding me. But so that's one way. I have a
Yeah.
friend, and it's funny, if I have one of my closest friends, we talked about this. She did books. She
Mm.
left
Oh,
books for her
wow.
parents, and,
Yes.
asked them to write things down. Like, so, and that really worked for her. And so, there are different ideas, different things that you can do. Again, I think it just really depends on your family. You can maybe leave some of the documents, or in the case of my friend, she left a book, and it was a book with everything in it. Like, so it, they
Yeah.
knew exactly kind of what to write. I have a couple of things that I use with clients. One is called it's called 5 Wishes, and it just kind of has like your 5 wishes of the questions that I covered, like, how do you want to be remembered? If something happens to you, what do you want people to do? And my hunch is that there are other things like that out there on the internet. So it may be a combination of giving people something tangible that they can write out on their own. Like, I did that
Right.
with my dad, and he did it. Like, he's really good self-directed. Like, I give him the homework, he does it. Other members of my family, we have to kind of talk it through, and then, we
Mm.
make notes and things like that. So just, I would say, know your family and know yourself, and then
Right.
try it. Just kind of, hey, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, but,
Mm.
we're in a pandemic. We don't want
Yeah.
anything to happen,
Mm.
but the inevitable at some point one day, we hope many, 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 many years from
Is
now,
right.
right? But and I think when you come at it from, a point of love, and just sort of, we want to make sure that we honor you,
Mm.
right? You want to make sure that you honor the people that you're having these conversations with. I think it makes it easier to have the conversation.
And I think it's a necessary conversation because there's only two sure things in life: death and taxes. I mean, and to not be prepared for those things is like, leaving that door wide open, for disasters to happen. Because, like you said, sometimes I see where people aren't really anticipating those sureties in life, right? And when it happens, is like Christmas coming around every year. It's going to come, but yet you rush on the 23rd or the 24th to get your gift, right? So it's the same thing. A lot of times we don't anticipate what the next step is, and we should think about these things. Thank you so much,
My pleasure.
Ramona. Man, this was amazing. For all of those who are listening and watching, you definitely need to reach out to Ramona on her LinkedIn page so you can learn more about how to secure your financial future and leave a legacy for your family and sometimes even your friends. So yeah, please reach out to her. Ramona, this was great information. I know I received a lot from it. Those of you who would like to be a part of Phoenix National Business Group, you'd like a program to be developed around your business. You're an entrepreneur, you're out there, you're hustling. Well, you have friends in the business, right? And we are here to help you. Our motto is when you win, we win. And so we want you to be a part of our team. If you'd like to do so, just reach out to me, 914-297-PNBG. That's Phoenix National Business Group. And I'll definitely tell you ways that you can sign up to join our network. Next on the list is my best good friend, Frank Coppola, in the business. Frank is amazing, and he's going to be joining us next week on building a business that you love, LOVE. So you want to hear that, because some of you have a business that you have been dreaming about starting, for years upon years, but now is your opportunity. If you're home, sitting at home, you're thinking, I've had this idea for a very long time. I've been sitting on it. I've been wondering what to do with it. Well, now's your chance. All right. Next week, we're doing business empowerment. And you want to learn from some of our experts that we have coming on the line, how to do that. So I'm encouraging you, share with a friend. You all know who I'm talking to. Share with that friend that you know is like a dreamer, and they're sitting there wondering how to get their dream into reality. We just had Joel Solomon on here. He was talking about how to do that. You need to get your mind right in order to get your money right. So we want to encourage you, just keep watching, keep listening. Frank, I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell some of the folks about what's going to be expected next week.
Well, Philip, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to next week. We're going to be doing 2 days. One is going to be build a business you love, double your income in less than 6 months. Now, that's a pretty bold statement. And I've been able to back it up with a number of people that have been able to do that. But what I really like to call this is build a business you love that brings you personal and financial freedom. Then double your income in less than 6 months. Now, why do I do this? Primarily because I've always felt that I wanted to have something that I really, really love to do, but I just couldn't find that hook. And then I managed to meet some people, and they turned me on to some different processes that I'm going to turn you on to. And now is the best time to be doing it, because let's face it, there's 42 million people out of work. And that breaks my heart that they're out of work. And I know that I can help them do a number of things. I can help them build a business from what is it that they truly love to do. And then I can also help them, if needed, to build the back end of the business, the production end of it, the accounting end of it, and all the rest. But where we're going to work on is you, who you are, what is it that you love to do, and why is it that you love to do it. And here are some of the topics that we'll be covering. And we'll go deeper into this, specifically in a couple of different areas. But the first thing you need to do is to find out what is it that you love to do. So we basically work on your strengths, because most people think about, well, if I can only figure out how to do X, Y, and Z. So they're really working on what's negative. We want to work on what's positive and then build from that. Whatever you've done that's negative is bad, is gone. Next. So the other thing that we talk about is your story, where you came from. And how did you get to where you are? Because everything that you've done has brought you right where you are, which is fantastic. The next area is we talk about focus, because clarity plus focus will give you profits. Because clarity means speed, focus means direction, and profits mean profits. So again, that could be in your personal life or your business life. Then we look at the emotional resilience. Business people and people in general go up, go down, go up, go down, and you want to be able to know how to ride the wave. The last thing, or one of the other things, is money manifestation. How do we make money in this thing called business? And there are some really interesting approaches. Then we have to cover the big top, which is time management, organization, and procrastination. Then we're also going to be looking at the power of sales, and we'll go deeply into that, because unless you have sales, you have no business. And most people don't like sales. Okay? But you have to remember, You've been selling all your life. The best
Yeah.
salespeople in the world are babies. They cry and people come running. And then the last thing is creativity. How to use your creativity to get to where you want to be going. I could give you a couple examples, but I think I'll wait until next week. I'll be giving away books. I always give away free consultations, as well as I'd like you to think about something between now and next week. What is it that you truly love to do that when you're doing it, you don't even realize you're doing it? I'll say it again. What is it that you truly love to do that when you're doing it, you don't even realize you're doing it? That's your strength. That's where we need to penetrate. So that's the build your business side of this. The other side of it is we're going to spend about an hour and a half on procrastination. 8 simple steps to overcome procrastination. And I will take you through the journey of procrastination, and I will show you directly how to stop procrastination. I don't mean like that would be a good idea. I mean, what constitutes procrastination? And if you can really figure that out, you'll have very specific ways to bypass procrastination, because it's known that the number one business element that will jeopardize your business is procrastination. Number one. So, and by the way, that's on your personal life as well. So I'm looking forward, Philip, to next week, and we'll have some bang up time together, and we'll bring some joy and peace and some harmony for people.
That's excellent, man. That's the goal. That's the
Yeah.
goal right there. You
bet.
want to make sure you are armed and prepared with vital information that's going to change your life. This is what Phoenix National Business Group is all about. It's about empowering people with the right information. You know, we got a lot of news out there, a lot of bad news, a lot of somewhat okay news, but we want to bring you some good news. We want to give you some good information that's going to be able to take you from where you are right now to where your dreams are, right? We want to make your dreams become a reality. And all of that is a lack of information. Sometimes the right information can turn your life around. Go ahead, Frank. What were you going to say?
I was going to say there's a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff floating around, but what's missing is wisdom.
Right.
So we're going to bring that to you.
Amen. I love that. Love that. We're going to bring wisdom to you, which I would define that as applying knowledge properly.
Exactly.
Right?
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge. The best way to destroy something is to wrongfully apply the information you have.
Yes.
So there's only a certain way you can put a car together. You got to make sure the tires are where the road is. If you put the tires on top of your car,
you're
still not going anywhere. You have tires. You have tires, but you will always be where you are. So we love this. I love that we're doing this together. And those of you who are watching, stay tuned. Next at 3 p.m., we're going to have Dwayne Reed. He's going to be coming on and talk to us about how to build our credit, how to build better credit. Those of you who have good credit, great. Now you need great credit. Yeah. Those of you who have bad credit, now you need better credit. Okay. So, join us and learn more about how to change your life by improving your credit with Dwayne Reed from Reed Financial. We're looking forward to that. Frank, thank you again.
Thank you.
See you next week. Ramona, you're amazing.
Thank
All right,
you.
You're gonna be back
Thanks
tomorrow. Oh, anytime. We're gonna have her back together tomorrow, and we're gonna just have Frank interview her and Joel. Y'all met Joel earlier, and they're gonna just give us a little bit more of what they have inside their informational arsenal, and we look forward to that as well. All right, see everyone in another 30 minutes or so with Dwayne Reed. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.